Welcome to The Workplace, a podcast by CalChamber. I'm Matthew Roberts, Associate General Counsel for Labor and Employment with the California Chamber of Commerce. Hello, listeners. Well, throughout the last couple of years, the term artificial intelligence, or AI, has been a buzz term that has offered us the prospects of improved efficiency in several aspects of life. The workplace is an area that offers significant promise and benefits from the innovations of AI. However, the government has expressed its own concerns about the misuse of AI, and earlier this year we saw a bill, AB 2930, that would have imposed significant requirements on employers and the developers of AI tools as it pertains to potential discrimination in employment. Fortunately, this bill stalled in the legislature. However, separately, the Civil Rights Council, which issues regulations in part pertaining to employment discrimination issues, has proposed its own set of rules around the use of AI tools and discrimination in the workplace. Given the substantially broad impact any rules around the usage of AI in the workplace may have, we welcome back Ashley Hoffman, CalChamber's employment law policy advocate, who is helping spearhead CalChamber's advocacy efforts in this area. Thanks for joining me today, Ashley.
Thanks for having me.
I think it benefits all of us, Ashley, to start with what rules the Civil Rights Council is actually proposing for employers that use AI tools, as well as the developers of those tools.
So I want to start by saying, I think from our perspective, discrimination is discrimination, whether it's done by pen and paper or, through use of something like automated decision tools or AI. Our concern with the proposed regulation is that it goes far beyond that. If that's what the regulations did, is really just clarified that, I think we wouldn't have a concern. But a lot of the concerns that we are hearing really stem from the idea of where can this liability lie. And so, for example, the council introduces a new concept of a quote agent, which effectively has the same exposure under FEHA as an employer does. And that could include someone who develops software. And the way that it is written, our concern is that it could, include businesses maybe that are developing systems that they are not maybe aware that could be used for employment-related decisions, or it could be used in a way that was different from what was intended. And there's this, I think, ever-moving target of, who should be liable and when and under what circumstances. There's been some case law that has touched on this, and our concern is that the regulations go beyond that. Also, too, what is ADS? What is an automated decision system? It could be anything that even, quote, facilitates a decision that's being made, which from our perspective is very broad. And so there's a lot of different components of the regulations that we have some concern about. There were some changes that were made recently that we were pleasantly surprised to see about, when a claim could arise. To no surprise, I think there were some folks kind of on more of the employee side that disagreed, where that line should be. And so it's definitely something that, is still being worked through. And some of these ideas, as you pointed out, have been debated in the legislature over the last couple of years, and we expect them to continue to be debated.
Yeah. And, I think it'd be kind of important to differentiate some terms here because, I started out with just this nebulous artificial intelligence AI kind of term. But you've mentioned something around the term automated decision systems or, something that assists with decision making. What are the kinds of things that we're looking at in the definition, at least now, or the things that we might see fall under something like an automated decision system?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is coming up in hiring. Hiring and screening and selection kind of tools, that may be out there on the market that some employers may be using. That is really, I think, where a lot of the examples that come to mind for me may arise, especially if you maybe are a company that is having to filter through a lot of applications, or maybe that's the whole, product that you sell is helping employers, right, look through applications and things like that. And so some of those kinds of tools, a little bit what we're talking about. But then there's some concerns that, with how broad it is, it could be even something like, I don't know, like a calculator, or, like something like that could even be kind of swept up in this definition.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting because as I was looking through the regulations, obviously it has this broad general definition set and, what employers need to watch out for. As you say, discrimination is discrimination, no matter whether it's a computer tool or, we're doing on pen and paper like before. But I've noticed that we've had some issues with, as you said, the substantial burdens and liability on organizations with regards to the proposed regulations, especially around the idea of stifling innovation by extending that liability to the developers themselves. So what else are some specific concerns that you might have with the current version of the regs?
Yeah. So, for example, again, when we're talking about some of these tools that you may use, some of the verbiage in there kind of implies that use of that tool absent a defense is discrimination or is having, some sort of disparate impact. We want to make sure that we're clarifying, right, that sometimes these tools may lead to impacts like that. It's not a foregone conclusion, right, that discrimination or disparate impact is happening. And so that's some of the concern we're seeing as well. Again, there's still some concerns, I think, about record keeping as well and some of the feasibility for that, especially if you're on more of the developer side, not the person actually using the tool. If you sell it, to an entity that you no longer have contact with, right? What does that mean as far as your liability or record keeping obligations and the like as well? Again, still getting some feedback from our members, but those are some of the common themes that I have really been hearing. There were some concerns about also, too, a revised kind of definition of what is an adverse impact or, a disparate impact. Again, we saw some good changes there in the most recent draft, but want to make sure that we're not introducing confusion and creating a new kind of discrimination claim that had not previously existed, and that we are keeping under kind of current case law and current parameters for what these causes of action may look like.
Yeah, and it seems as you go through the regulations, beyond those general terms, there's also rules related to specific issues in these proposed regs. Because, when we talk about discrimination in employment practices, there's all these protected classes we have first, right? There's 19 of them, but then there's all these other different kinds of employment practices that we have, especially in the recruitment area. How we advertise the job, how we do maybe contingent screenings like criminal background checks. So what kind of examples are you seeing where, specific causes of action or specific issues may arise under the use of AI or ADS tools?
Yeah. So to your point, if you think about disability, whether it's a physical disability or potentially a cognitive disability, there is some different language in the regulations about tools that may lead to potentially screening out of certain applicants who have disabilities. Obviously, there's a lot of protection both under California and federal law. And so again, wanting to make sure that the regulations are striking a good balance between tools that could be helpful, encouraging innovation to your point, but then also if you are using tools that are measuring dexterity or reaction time, that you are taking into consideration potential impacts that could have on certain applicants. But again, that we are kind of working within a framework and current case law and current, potential disparate impact cases. And we're not making the bar so low that, if there's, a good faith error or something, or maybe if someone correcting the decision that's been made, right, you're not still being exposed potentially to liability, and we're deterring use from these tools altogether. I know one of the folks who submitted a comment, really was talking about the benefits of some of these tools for employers, and that we're wanting to make sure that we're not just triggering liability at the drop of a hat to the point where employers will be deterred from using these tools again.
Excellent. So we do know that, employers are using these tools and they do promise efficiency in several areas of employment practices, as we're always looking to do, be more efficient, more productive while staying within the confines of the law. So for those employers who are using them, who are thinking about using them, looking to use them, what does the future of these regs look like? And really, on top of that, are we expecting to see even the legislature go back to propose its own rules again, like it did with AB 2930?
Yeah, even though, some bills like AB 2930, right, that was the second year that had been introduced, and I fully expect something like it to be introduced again, I would say 2024 was probably the first big year for bills on AI. There were, I think, well over 40, if not over 50. A lot of debate going on about how do we even define it. The legislature did pass in AB 2885, a bill that included a formal definition of artificial intelligence. You also have privacy agency that is looking into some of these issues. And so I think from an overarching perspective, we want to make sure that anything the CRD is doing is also not getting ahead of these other agencies and entities, because these issues are complex. This technology is ever changing, and we want to make sure we're getting it right. And when you have, so many kind of birds in the air on this issue, that we are acting uniformly. The use of tools in employment is not looking so different from the use of tools in other spheres that businesses are kind of trying to navigate a web of different regulations.
Right. So at least at this point, then, Ashley, these are just proposals
yes,
for our employers. And I know we made that clear, but I want to make sure that the employers know that this is still kind of an ongoing thing with kind of an indeterminate future, but that it's being looked at. Right. So because it's being looked at, and while the government continues considering these rules, whether it's at the regulatory agency level or whether it's at the legislature, what can employers do now while they are using these tools to avoid what exists today? Because like you said, as you started at the outset, and I think it's really important, discrimination exists, right? If you exercise an employment decision and you are motivated substantially in part by a protected class, it's a problem. So what should employers look at when they're using these tools, at least with the current existing legal framework?
I think you make a really good point, and that the lens we are viewing this proposal and other proposals with is, if you use an automated decision tool and it is having, a substantial impact screening out certain applicants or something like that in a protected class, that may already serve as the basis for a disparate impact claim. That's existing law. And so employers who are using these tools need to be very, very careful. And I think really study and look at the output when you're using this kind of technology and see what the impact is, and ensuring that you are not accidentally already falling into one of these kind of scenarios where you are screening out certain applicants. You are screening out certain maybe people for an internal promotion or something along those lines. So I think that's why the drum we are really beating is use of these tools may already be the cause of action for discrimination. We've seen the EEOC go after companies for that already. So let's clarify that, but let's also make sure we are not just dropping the hammer on, any use of this to where we're deterring innovation. And so it's a really tough balance, I'll be honest. But I think as an employer, it's great to have these tools to make things more efficient, but you need to be very careful.
Excellent. Well, Ashley, thank you for joining me to discuss the complex and ever-evolving state of artificial intelligence, automated decision systems, and any other terms we might come up with in the future, and how those regulations are moving in the workplace.
Thanks, Matthew.
And thank you, listeners, for joining this discussion on the workplace. Please share and subscribe to CalChamber's podcast by visiting calchamber.com.